So imagine this. You're sitting at your kitchen table, tapping your fingers nervously, when suddenly the radio crackles with news that the stock market just crashed. Like, completely crashed. You know that little bit of money you had saved up? Gone. Your job? Probably gone soon too. And you look around your kitchen at that nearly empty pantry and think, how the hell am I going to feed my family now? That's exactly what happened to millions of Americans in 1929, and tonight we're going to see what they actually ate to survive one of the worst economic disasters in history. Oh, and if you're enjoying these stories, I'd really appreciate a like or subscribe. Super curious where you're all listening from, so drop a comment with your location and what time it is there. Always blows my mind how people are falling asleep to this all over the world. All right, find that cozy spot, take a nice slow breath, and just let your body sink into whatever you're lying on. We're heading back to the Great Depression, and trust me, you're going to be real grateful for that mattress by the time we're done. So, congratulations, you just woke up in 1932, 3 years into the Great Depression. Your eyes open slowly, adjusting to the dim morning light filtering through the thin, patched curtains of your tiny apartment. You're not on a plush mattress anymore. You're on a lumpy, cotton-stuffed mattress that sits directly on rusty metal springs. The springs creak as you shift slightly. Not exactly comfortable. The apartment is cold. October in New York City, and the radiator barely works. Your threadbare wool blanket doesn't do much against the chill. You can see your breath forming little clouds in the air above you. Your stomach growls loudly. It's been doing that a lot lately. That hollow feeling has become your constant companion over the past few years. Not quite starvation, but nowhere near satisfaction either. Just persistent emptiness. From the street below comes the sound of a milk wagon, horse hooves clopping on cobblestones, the rattle of glass bottles. Must be around 6 a.m. The neighbours upstairs are already moving around. You can hear their footsteps through the thin ceiling. Their little boy is coughing again, that same hacking cough he's had for weeks now. No money for a doctor, of course. You swing your legs over the side of the bed, your bare feet hitting the cold wooden floor. The boards creak underneath you as you stand up and stretch. Your clothes from yesterday are draped over the only chair in the room. A pair of worn wool trousers, a cotton shirt patched at the elbows, suspenders that have seen better days. They smell faintly of sweat and the factory where you're lucky enough to still have work. For now, anyway. You should probably eat something before heading out to look for work. The question is, what? The icebox is nearly empty. There's a bit of milk, probably turning sour, half a loaf of day-old bread, a small jar of peanut butter that needs to last the week. No eggs, no meat, no fresh vegetables. This is America in 1932. The land of plenty has become the land of empty stomachs and creative cooking. And you, along with about 25% of all Americans, are unemployed and desperate. It wasn't always like this. Just a few years earlier, the Roaring Twenties had lived up to their name. America was prosperous. People were buying cars, radios, and washing machines. The stock market seemed like a magical money tree where anyone could get rich quick. Then came October 24th, 1929. Black Thursday, the day the stock market took a nosedive and kept falling. By 1932, the Dow Jones Industrial Average had dropped a staggering 89% from its peak. People lost everything. Banks collapsed, taking people's life savings with them. Businesses closed, jobs disappeared, and now here you are standing in your cold apartment trying to figure out how to make a meal from almost nothing. You open the cabinet and stare at what little you have. This is where the real creativity begins. This is where desperation becomes invention. Your hand hovers over the small tin of cornmeal, and next to it that precious jar of powdered milk. You could make milcorno, that weird gruel-like mixture of milk powder and cornmeal that scientists at Cornell University created specifically to feed people cheaply during these hard times. Not exactly delicious, but it fills the stomach and provides some nutrition. Or maybe you'll just have bread with a smear of peanut butter. You need to save some for tomorrow, though. Who knows when you'll have money for more? As you contemplate your meagre breakfast options, you think about your neighbour Mrs. Rossi. She's an Italian immigrant who somehow manages to feed her 6 children despite her husband losing his construction job 2 years ago. Yesterday you saw her collecting dandelion greens from the vacant lot down the street. Good for salad, she told you with a smile. Free food right there in the dirt. Americans, they don't know. Maybe she's onto something. The thought of eating weeds feels strange, but hunger has a way of making strange things seem reasonable. You decide on the bread with a thin, very thin layer of peanut butter. You cut the slice in half, saving the other half for lunch. As you chew slowly, making it last longer, you think about President Hoover. People are blaming him for the Depression. They're calling the shanty towns that have sprung up across the country Hoovervilles. Even the empty, turned-out pockets of the unemployed have a name now: Hoover flags. You've heard that things might be changing, though. There's an election coming up in November, and the New York governor, Franklin Roosevelt, is running against Hoover. Roosevelt is promising a New Deal for Americans, whatever that means. After 3 years of empty promises, you're not holding your breath. Finishing your meagre breakfast, you put on your coat, once a good wool garment, now threadbare at the elbows and frayed at the cuffs. You tuck the half slice of bread with peanut butter into your pocket for lunch and head out the door. Maybe today you'll find work. Maybe today will be different. As you step out onto the street, the cold October air hits your face. The sidewalks are already busy with other men looking for work. Some are heading to the factories, hoping to be picked for a day's labour. Others are walking with that aimless shuffle of the long-term unemployed. A few have set up makeshift shoeshine stations, though who has money for a shoeshine these days? The smell of cabbage soup wafts from an open window. Cabbage, cheap, filling, available year-round. It's become a staple in many households. If you're lucky enough to have a bit of salt pork or a ham bone to flavour it, even better. If not, well, hot water and cabbage is still something in your stomach. You pass by a grocery store window. Inside you can see shelves with canned goods, flour, sugar, all the basics. The prices are displayed on small cards. A loaf of bread, 5 cents. A pound of hamburger, 12 cents. A quart of milk, 10 cents. Not expensive by pre-depression standards, but with no income, it might as well be $1,000. A line has formed outside a church down the block, a soup kitchen. Your stomach growls again, reminding you that half a slice of bread with peanut butter isn't much of a breakfast. But you hesitate. You haven't fallen that far yet, have you? Standing in a soup line is for the truly desperate. Then again, aren't you? The rent is due next week, and you have exactly $2.37 to your name. You join the line. The wait is long. Men shuffle forward slowly, eyes down, shoulders hunched. There's a silent understanding among everyone here. We don't talk about this. We don't acknowledge each other. This moment of need is private, even in public. When you finally reach the front of the line, a kindly-faced nun hands you a tin bowl of soup and a chunk of bread. "God bless you," she says. You nod, not meeting her eyes, and move to a corner to eat. The soup is thin, mostly broth with a few floating vegetables and the occasional piece of mystery meat, but it's hot and it fills that empty space in your stomach. The bread is stale but edible when dipped in the broth. You eat slowly, savouring each spoonful. Who knows when your next meal will be? As you finish, you notice a newspaper someone has left behind. The headline reads, "Roosevelt promises relief for forgotten man." Below that, a smaller headline, "White House serves simple meals in solidarity with nation's poor." You pick up the paper, curious. Apparently, Eleanor Roosevelt, the governor's wife, has been serving very basic meals at the governor's mansion. Things like deviled eggs in tomato sauce with mashed potatoes, simple food without fancy spices or expensive ingredients. If Roosevelt wins the presidency, the article says Mrs. Roosevelt plans to continue this practice in the White House. The thought of the potential First Lady eating the same kind of plain, economical food as ordinary Americans is oddly comforting. At least someone in power might understand what it's like. You fold the newspaper and tuck it into your pocket. It might come in handy later, if not for the news, then for insulation in your shoes, or to stuff the gap under your apartment door where the cold draft comes in. The rest of the day passes in the familiar routine of rejection. No work today, not hiring. Try again next week. By late afternoon, your feet ache and your spirit is low. You've walked miles across the city, following rumors of jobs that don't exist or are already taken. As you head home, you pass by the market again. It's near closing time, and sometimes the vendors sell their remaining produce at reduced prices rather than take it back. You pause, checking your pocket for those precious few coins. There, a vendor is packing up his stall, but there's a small pile of slightly bruised apples in a crate. "How much?" you ask, pointing. 2 cents each, he says, or 5 cents for 3. You dig into your pocket and pull out a nickel. "I'll take 3. He hands you the apples, small, spotted, past their prime, but still apples, real fruit, a luxury these days. Back in your apartment, you survey your dinner options, the half slice of bread with peanut butter you saved from breakfast, one of the apples, and what else? Your eyes fall on the jar of peanut butter again. There's not much left, but enough. And then you notice the small bag of onions in the corner. An idea forms in your mind. You've heard about it from others, read about it in one of those pamphlets the Bureau of Home Economics distributes. Peanut butter stuffed onions. It sounds bizarre, maybe even disgusting. But the pamphlet insisted it was nutritious and economical. And right now, those are the only qualities that matter in food. You select a medium-sized onion, peel it, and cut off the top. Carefully, you scoop out some of the center, creating a hollow. Into this, you spoon a bit of peanut butter. Then you replace the top of the onion like a little lid and place the whole thing in your one baking dish. While it bakes in your temperamental oven, you slice one of the apples and savor each piece slowly. The sweetness is intense after so many days of bland food. Your mouth waters as the tart juice hits your tongue. You close your eyes, momentarily transported to better times. The smell coming from the oven is interesting. Not necessarily appetizing, but not terrible either. When the onion is soft, you remove it and place it on your chipped plate. Dinner is served. You cut into the onion. The peanut butter has melted slightly, creating a thick sauce. You take a bite, bracing yourself. It's strange. The sharp, pungent flavor of the onion competes with the rich, nutty taste of the peanut butter. They don't exactly complement each other, but neither completely overpowers the other. It's food. It's filling. That's all that matters. As you eat, you think about the other creative dishes people are making to get through these hard times. Your friend Jack told you about Hoover stew, a mix of hot dogs cut into small pieces to make them go further, canned tomatoes, canned corn, and macaroni, named after the president, of course, though not as a compliment. Then there's prune whip, a dessert made from prunes, cheap and available year-round, whipped with egg whites and sugar. First Lady Hoover apparently serves it at the White House, and you've heard about people making mock apple pie using Ritz crackers instead of apples. Supposedly, the cream of tartar in the recipe tricks your taste buds into thinking you're eating apples. You're not sure you believe that, but it's clever nonetheless. This is what America has come to. Onions stuffed with peanut butter, crackers pretending to be apples, and soup kitchens with lines around the block. You finish your odd dinner and wash the single plate and fork in the small sink. Through the thin walls, you can hear your neighbours arguing about money again. It's a common sound these days, the stress of poverty straining even the strongest relationships. As you settle onto your lumpy mattress for the night, you realize something. Despite everything, the hunger, the cold, the uncertainty, you're still here, still fighting, still finding ways to survive. There's a strange pride in that. You pull the thin blanket up to your chin, trying to find a comfortable position on the lumpy mattress. Tomorrow, you'll try again. Maybe there will be work at the docks. Maybe Roosevelt will win the election and things will change. Maybe someone will invent a dish that makes peanut butter and onions taste good together. The street lamp outside casts a dim glow through your window. You're tired, so tired, your body heavy against the mattress, sinking deeper into that not quite comfortable spot that's become familiar over these past difficult years. Your breathing slows. In the distance, a car horn honks, then fades. The city settles into its nighttime rhythm, and despite the hunger, despite the worry, your eyelids grow heavy. Your shoulders relax a bit, muscles letting go of the day's tension as you shift slightly, finding that spot where the springs don't dig into your back quite as much. Life during the Depression is hard, but humans are remarkably adaptable. Even now, drifting towards sleep, there's a quiet resilience in you that can't be broken by empty pockets or strange food combinations. Your breathing deepens, steadies, and for a little while at least the worries of the Great Depression fade as your body surrenders to rest, settling deeper into the makeshift bed, your mind already dreaming of better days ahead. Morning arrives with harsh sunlight streaming through those thin curtains. Another day, another empty stomach, another chance to get creative with whatever food you can scrounge up. You sit up on your creaky bed and rub the sleep from your eyes. Today feels different somehow. There's a buzz in the air. Election day is coming soon, and with it, a tiny flicker of hope. Maybe Roosevelt will win. Maybe things will change. Your neighbour Mrs. Rossi knocks on your door just as you're buttoning your shirt. She's holding a small bundle wrapped in newspaper. "My Giovanni caught fish yesterday," she says with a proud smile. "Little ones, from the river, I share." Inside the newspaper are 2 small silver fish, already cleaned and gutted. You're touched by her generosity. When everyone has nearly nothing, sharing becomes both more precious and more common. "Thank you," you say, genuinely moved. "Would you like some coffee?" It's not real coffee, of course. It's chicory, those bitter roots that, when roasted and ground, make a coffee-like drink. Not great, but hot and dark and better than nothing. Mrs. Rossi nods and enters your tiny apartment. As you heat water on your 2-burner stove, she looks around your sparse living space. "You need vegetables," she says decisively. "After coffee, we go pick dandelions." You've been eyeing those dandelions growing in vacant lots for weeks now, but haven't quite had the courage to try them. Mrs. Rossi, though, speaks of them like they're a delicacy. "Best in spring when they're young," she explains, accepting the cup of chicory coffee. "But still good now. Little bitter, but good for blood. My mother in Italy, she make dandelion wine too." The coffee is hot and bitter in your mouth. No milk, that's a luxury, but the warmth feels good going down. Your stomach growls in anticipation of actual food. After coffee, you follow Mrs. Rossi to a weedy, vacant lot 3 blocks over. She carries a small knife and a cloth bag. With expert precision, she identifies the dandelion plants and cuts them at the base. "Not this one. Too old. See yellow flower? Too bitter now. This one good. See, no flower yet," she instructs. You follow her lead, collecting the green plants that apparently make the best eating. Your fingers get stained with their milky white sap. The smell of earth and green things fills your nostrils. It's pleasant being outside in the morning. Foraging like this almost makes you forget your troubles. In the old country, Mrs. Rossi says as she works, we always eat from the land. Americans, they forget how. They think food only comes from stores. She gives you a knowing look, but now they learn again. Back in your apartment, Mrs. Rossi shows you how to wash the dandelion greens thoroughly. Dirt not good seasoning, she jokes. Then she tears them into smaller pieces, drizzles them with a precious bit of olive oil she's brought from her own kitchen, adds a squeeze of lemon and a sprinkle of salt. Simple, yes, but good. Full of vitamini, she says, using the Italian word. She takes a small bite, chewing thoughtfully. Little bitter, but good for you. Cleans the blood. You take a bite. The greens are indeed bitter, but not unpleasantly so. The olive oil and lemon juice help, and there's something satisfying about eating food you gathered yourself. Food that was free for the taking, growing wild in the city. Thank you. You tell Mrs. Rossi again. I wouldn't have known how to do this. She waves away your thanks. Tonight you come to my apartment. I show you how to cook the fish. Small, yes, but with pasta and tomato is enough. After she leaves, you feel a bit lighter. The dandelion greens sit in your stomach. Not entirely filling, but better than nothing. And the promise of a real dinner tonight with the Rossi family gives you something to look forward to. You head out again, hoping for work, but also keeping your eyes open for any other free food you might forage. You've heard that some people collect nuts from city parks in the fall or pick berries in season. Urban foraging, it's becoming a necessary skill. The streets seem more alive today. Election talk is everywhere. People gather around radios in store windows, listening to news about Roosevelt and Hoover. The general feeling is that Roosevelt will win, but after years of hardship, nobody's counting on anything. Near a bakery, you pause. The smell of fresh bread makes your mouth water and your stomach growl. A small crowd has gathered at the back door where the baker is selling day-old bread at half price. You join the line. 2 cents a loaf, the baker announces. Limit 1 per customer. You hand over 2 of your precious pennies and receive a slightly stale loaf in return. It's a good deal. Bread is a staple, and this will keep you going for a few days if you're careful. Walking on, you pass a government building where a line of people stretches around the block. They're waiting for relief checks or food assistance. The government has started some programs to help, but it's nowhere near enough. Still, something is better than nothing. You notice a woman handing out pamphlets. Curious, you take one. Economical Meals for Difficult Times, reads the cover. It's from the Bureau of Home Economics, full of recipes and tips for stretching food budgets. Flipping through, you see recipes for creamed chipped beef on toast, nicknamed SOS, same old slop, or something ruder, depending on who you ask. Liver loaf and something called milcorno, that mixture of dried milk and cornmeal you've tried before. One recipe catches your eye, Ritz mock apple pie. The instructions explain how to use Ritz crackers as a substitute for apples in a pie. Apparently, the texture of the crackers and the addition of cream of tartar and lemon juice creates something that tastes surprisingly like apple pie. Clever. You tuck the pamphlet into your pocket. Maybe there are some ideas in there you haven't tried yet. By late afternoon, you've walked miles again, with no luck finding work, but you've managed to collect a few more dandelion greens from another vacant lot, and you found a discarded newspaper that will serve as insulation in your shoes. As promised, you head to the Rossi apartment for dinner. Their place is similar to yours, small, sparsely furnished, with the same thin walls and temperamental heating. But there are 6 children ranging from toddler to teenager, making the space feel full and alive in a way your solitary apartment never does. Mrs. Rossi is at the stove, stirring a pot of tomato sauce. The small fish you gave her have been added to the sauce, along with some herbs she grows in a window box. The whole apartment smells amazing. Mr. Rossi sits at the table, listening to the radio. He's been out of construction work for 2 years now, but occasionally finds odd jobs. Today, he's managed to earn 50 cents helping unload a truck. It's not much, but it's something. "Come, sit," Mrs. Rossi says, gesturing to the table. Food almost ready. The Rossi children crowd around the table, talking excitedly about the election and school and 100 other things. Despite their poverty, there's a warmth here, a sense of family that transcends their circumstances. Mrs. Rossi serves the pasta with tomato and fish sauce. It's a small portion for each person. There are 8 mouths to feed after all, but it's hot and flavourful. The children have also had dandelion salad, you notice, and there's a small loaf of bread that gets carefully divided. "Giovanni, tell about the fish," Mrs. Rossi prompts her oldest son. The boy, about 14, sits up proudly. "I caught them in the East River. Got 5 total. Papa helped." "Good eating, those little fish," Mr. Rossi adds. "Not like the fish in Italy, but good." As you eat, the conversation flows around you. Politics, jobs, school, the normal stuff of life, continuing even in abnormal times. The pasta is simple but delicious. The tomatoes adding a brightness. The fish, a depth of flavour. It's the best meal you've had in weeks. After dinner, Mrs. Rossi brings out a surprise, a small dish of something white and creamy. "Ricotta," she explains. "Made it myself from leftover milk that was turning, little sugar, little cinnamon, not much, but sweet. The small spoonful of sweetened ricotta is heaven on your tongue. Creamy, just sweet enough, with the warmth of cinnamon. Desserts are rare these days, and this simple one feels like a true luxury." As you help clear the dishes, you notice a box on their shelf that you recognize, Kraft macaroni and cheese. It's a relatively new product, just introduced this year. 19 cents for a box that feeds 4. Even in these hard times, it's an affordable option. "The children, they love it," Mrs. Rossi says, following your gaze. "American cheese, not like Italian, but they don't know difference. Quick to make when I work cleaning houses." Walking back to your apartment in the early evening, your stomach feels pleasantly full for the first time in days. The Rossis have so little, yet they shared what they had. It's a common story during these difficult times, people helping each other survive. Back home, you sit on your bed and take out the pamphlet from earlier. Maybe there are more ideas for stretching your limited food supply. You read about Hoover stew, named with that same bitter irony as Hoovervilles, a mix of hot dogs, macaroni, canned tomatoes, and whatever vegetables might be available, designed to be filling and cheap. There's also a recipe for something called depression cake, made without eggs, milk, or butter, all of which are expensive or hard to come by. Instead, it uses oil, water, and sometimes vinegar. Not quite as good as a regular cake, but it satisfies that craving for something sweet. You think about First Lady Lou Henry Hoover and the incoming Eleanor Roosevelt. Both have been advocating for economical meals during these hard times. Mrs. Roosevelt even hired home economists to develop nutritious, low-cost recipes that she serves at the governor's mansion. One of those recipes is for milk-wheato, similar to milcorno, but using wheat instead of corn. These powdered milk and grain mixtures aren't exactly delicious, but they're filling and provide some nutrition. The government has been buying them in massive quantities. £25 million for hunger relief efforts. Your thoughts drift to the possibility of a Roosevelt presidency. What would his New Deal actually look like? Would it make a difference for people like you and the Rossis? Outside, the city grows quieter as night falls. Your small apartment holds the lingering scent of dandelion greens and the memory of the Rossi's pasta dinner. Your stomach isn't growling for once. Small victories. You lay back on your bed, feeling the subtle difference between hungry tired and just plain tired. Tonight, it's the latter. A better kind of exhaustion. Your body feels heavy against the mattress, a pleasant weight sinking into the worn springs. The sounds of the city fade as you relax. A car horn in the distance, someone's radio playing softly, the familiar creak of the building settling. Tomorrow will bring more challenges, more creative meals, more searching for work, but tonight you've eaten well thanks to the generosity of neighbours. Tonight there's a full moon shining through your window, casting silver light across your small room. Tonight your muscles release their tension as you breathe slowly, deeply, settling into that space between wakefulness and dreams. Your thoughts drift to those dandelions, stubborn weeds that push through concrete cracks, surviving against all odds. There's something poetic about that, something hopeful. Your breathing becomes deeper, steadier, the weight of your body pressing comfortably into the mattress. That pleasant heaviness in your limbs as you find the most comfortable position. Maybe tomorrow you'll try that mock apple pie recipe. Maybe Roosevelt will win the election. Maybe things will change. For now, though, you're warm, relatively full, and resting easier than you have in days. Your eyes grow heavy, but not yet heavy enough for sleep. Just that comfortable, drowsy feeling as your body relaxes completely, preparing for whatever tomorrow might bring in this strange, difficult time in American history. Morning arrives with the sound of rain pattering against your window. You stretch slowly, feeling each muscle wake up one by one. The apartment is damp and chilly, but your body feels surprisingly rested. Amazing what a decent meal can do for your spirits. You swing your legs over the side of the bed and plant your feet on the cold floor. Today is Election Day, November 8th, 1932. Roosevelt versus Hoover. The country holds its collective breath. In the corner of your room sits the small bag of remaining dandelion greens from yesterday. Not enough for a meal, but they might add some nutrition to whatever else you can scrounge up. Your pantry situation hasn't improved overnight. Still, just the stale bread, a bit of peanut butter, and those 2 remaining apples from the market. But today, you have a plan. The Government Relief Office is distributing food packages. You've avoided going there until now. Pride, maybe, or the hope that things would turn around before it came to that. But hunger is a powerful motivator, and pride doesn't fill an empty stomach. You dress quickly, putting on your least worn shirt for the occasion. The relief office will be crowded, and you want to make a decent impression. Not that it matters much. They give food to anyone who qualifies, regardless of appearance. But it makes you feel better, like you still have some dignity left. Outside, the rain has turned the streets slick and grey. People hurry along under newspapers, coats pulled over their heads, a few lucky ones with actual umbrellas. You join the flow, using your jacket collar as minimal protection against the drizzle. The line at the relief office stretches around the block despite the weather. Men, women, even some children, all waiting patiently for assistance. You take your place at the end, settling in for a long wait. The rain continues to fall, soaking through your coat. Your shoes, already worn thin, offer little protection against the growing puddles. Your socks are wet within minutes. But you stay. Everyone stays. The man in front of you is about your age, maybe a bit older. His hat, once fine, is now shapeless from wear and weather. You strike up a conversation to pass the time. Think Roosevelt's got a chance, you ask? More than a chance, he replies confidently. Country's ready for change. Hoover had his shot. What kind of change, though? Roosevelt's still a rich man. Does he really understand what it's like for folks like us? The man shrugs. Maybe not personally, but his wife does, from what I hear. Eleanor Roosevelt, she's been visiting coal mines, slums, relief agencies, seeing how people really live. You've read about this in the newspapers. The governor's wife isn't like most society ladies. She goes places most wealthy women wouldn't dream of visiting, talks to ordinary people, listens. Heard she's got some kind of home economics team at the governor's mansion, the man continues, developing cheap recipes for people to make during hard times. Any good ones, you ask, thinking of your nearly empty pantry. My wife tried that vinegar pie they published, he says, with a small smile. Not bad, actually, better than it sounds. Vinegar pie? The name alone makes your face scrunch up. It's one of those desperation pies, he explains. When you can't get fruit for a proper pie, you use what you've got. Vinegar gives it that tart taste, like apples or lemons would. Mix it with sugar, eggs, and butter if you've got it. Bake it in a crust. It sounds bizarre, but then again so did peanut butter stuffed onions before you tried them, and these are bizarre times. The line inches forward. After nearly 2 hours, you finally reach the door of the relief office. Inside, it's crowded but organised. Workers at tables call people forward one by one, checking their information against lists. When it's your turn, a tired-looking woman asks for your name and address. She flips through her paperwork, nods, and hands you a slip of paper. Take this to the distribution centre 3 blocks east, she says mechanically. They'll give you your ration. What's in it? You can't help asking. Standard package, flour, cornmeal, rice, canned goods if they have them, maybe some powdered milk. You thank her and head back out into the rain, which has finally slowed to a light drizzle. The distribution centre is a converted warehouse, and another line has formed outside it, but this one moves faster. Inside, a worker takes your slip and hands you a cardboard box in return. It's heavier than you expected, and the weight of actual food in your arms brings an unexpected lump to your throat. You swallow hard and nod your thanks. Back in your apartment, you open the box like it's Christmas morning. Inside, 5 pounds of flour, 3 pounds of cornmeal, a bag of navy beans, 2 cans of evaporated milk, a small bag of rice, a can of stewed tomatoes, a jar of peanut butter, larger than your nearly empty one, and wonder of wonders, a small tin of Crisco shortening. It's not fancy food, but in your hands, with some creativity, it can become meals. Actual meals. You immediately think of what Mrs. Rossi might do with these ingredients. The beans and tomatoes could become a soup. The cornmeal could be made into cornbread. The flour and Crisco, maybe biscuits. Your stomach growls, reminding you that you haven't eaten yet today. You open the can of evaporated milk, dilute some with water according to the instructions on the label, and pour it over a small portion of cornmeal. As it cooks on your stove, it becomes a simple porridge. You add a spoonful of peanut butter for protein and flavour. The result is plain but filling, and importantly, it's hot food on a cold, wet day. As you eat, you wonder how many other Americans are having a similar meal right now. Millions, probably. Simple food, government distributed, keeping body and soul together during this seemingly endless crisis. After eating, you feel energized enough to try something more ambitious. You've been thinking about that vinegar pie the man in line mentioned. You have flour now, and Crisco for a crust. You have sugar, not much, but some. No eggs, but you've heard of recipes that work without them. And vinegar. Well, you have a bottle of that. It's cheap and keeps forever. You find a recipe in that pamphlet you picked up, modified for eggless times. Flour, Crisco, and cold water become a simple dough that you press into your 1-pie tin. For the filling, sugar, a bit of your precious flour, water, vinegar, and a sprinkle of cinnamon from a nearly empty tin in your cupboard. It goes into your unreliable oven, which you've managed to light despite the perpetual problem with the pilot. Now it's a waiting game. While the pie bakes, filling your small apartment with an unexpectedly pleasant aroma, you turn on your radio to listen for election news. Polling stations are still open, but early results from eastern states are coming in. Roosevelt is leading in many places. A cautious hope spreads through you. A knock at your door interrupts the broadcast. It's Mrs. Rossi again, this time with her youngest child, a girl of about 4 holding her hand. "I smell something good," Mrs. Rossi says with a smile. "You baking?" You tell her about the relief package and the vinegar pie experiment. Her eyes light up. "Ah, my grandmother in old country made something like this, but with wine, not vinegar. When no fruit, we use what we have. Yes?" You invite them in, pleased to have company. The little girl, Sophia, is shy at first, but warms up when you show her the pie in the oven. "I bring you this," Mrs. Rossi says, handing you a small jar. "Dandelion jelly made from flowers in spring. Little bit left. The jelly is a clear golden colour, beautiful in its simplicity. Another example of Mrs. Rossi's resourcefulness, turning backyard weeds into something precious." "Thank you," you say, genuinely touched. "You've taught me so much about making do with what's available." She waves away your thanks. Is survival. In Italy after war was same. You learn or you go hungry. The timer you've set rings and you pull the pie from the oven. It's golden brown and bubbling, looking remarkably like a regular fruit pie despite containing no fruit at all. "Must cool," Mrs. Rossi advises, "then we taste." While waiting, you share your cornmeal porridge with Sophia, who eats it happily, evidently used to simple foods. Mrs. Rossi tells you more about growing up in Italy after World War I, when food shortages taught her family to use every edible plant, to preserve everything possible, to waste nothing. "Depression not new," she says wisely, "just new for Americans. Rest of world, we know hunger before." When the pie is cool enough, you cut 3 small slices. The moment of truth. You take a bite, not knowing what to expect. Surprisingly, it's good, sweet, with a tanginess that indeed reminds you of apple pie. The texture is different. No fruit pieces, of course, but the flavour is pleasing. Sophia eats hers enthusiastically, and Mrs. Rossi nods in approval. "Good woman's pie," she declares. "Clever cooking." After they leave, taking a slice of pie for Mr. Rossi, you feel a strange sense of accomplishment. You've created something tasty from almost nothing. You've transformed basic relief rations into something that brought smiles to a child's face. In these dark times, that feels like a victory. The radio continues to bring election updates throughout the evening. Roosevelt is winning state after state. The tide has turned decisively against Hoover, it seems. By the time you prepare for bed, it's becoming clear that tomorrow America will have a new president-elect. Will it make a difference? Will Roosevelt's New Deal actually help people like you? It's impossible to know, but change is coming, and after 3 years of depression, any change feels hopeful. You wrap the remaining pie carefully, saving it for tomorrow. Your government rations, properly managed, should last a couple of weeks. The danger of immediate hunger has been temporarily averted. As you settle onto your bed, you think about the creativity born of these hard times. Dandelion greens from vacant lots, peanut butter in unlikely places, vinegar pretending to be fruit, Ritz crackers masquerading as apples. It's strange and wonderful, the human capacity to adapt. Your thoughts turn to the women working in the Cornell University Home Economics Department, developing recipes like Milcorno to help feed hungry Americans affordably. You think of Eleanor Roosevelt, insisting on serving simple meals at the governor's mansion, soon to be the White House, as a gesture of solidarity with struggling citizens. Food has always been more than just sustenance. It's community. It's sharing what little you have, like the Rossis sharing their fish. It's creativity, like turning vinegar into pie filling. It's resilience, like foraging for dandelions when the pantry is bare. Outside, the rain has stopped. A sliver of moon peeks through the parting clouds, casting a soft silver light through your window. Your body feels pleasantly heavy, sinking comfortably into the mattress that no longer seems quite so lumpy. The worries of tomorrow, finding work, stretching food supplies, paying rent, seem a little less overwhelming tonight. Your breathing slows naturally as you gaze at that moonlight, your muscles relaxing one by one. In the morning, America will likely have a new president-elect. In the morning, you'll face the continuing challenges of Depression-era life. In the morning, you'll need to be resourceful and resilient once again. But for now, your belly is relatively full, your mind is relatively at ease, your body settles deeper into the mattress, finding that perfect position where nothing aches and everything feels just right. The tension in your shoulders melts away as you breathe slowly in and out, savoring this moment of peace in difficult times. The weight of your body presses comfortably into the bed, and for now, that's enough. Morning comes with shouts in the street, your eyes open to the sound of celebration. It takes you a moment to remember Election Day, Roosevelt. You sit up quickly, too quickly. Your head spins a little as the blood rushes. Easy now. You swing your legs over the side of the bed, feet touching the cold floor. The newspapers must have early editions out with the results. You dress hurriedly, splashing cold water on your face from the basin. No time to heat water this morning. You want to know if the country really has chosen a new path. Outside, people gather around newsstands, some cheering, others looking grim. You join a cluster around a paperboy shouting the headlines. Roosevelt wins in landslide, defeats Hoover in electoral rout. You hand over a precious penny for a paper. The headline confirms it. Franklin Delano Roosevelt is the president-elect, winning 42 of 48 states. A decisive victory, a mandate for change. People on the street are talking excitedly. What will this mean? Will the New Deal Roosevelt promised actually help ordinary people? After years of Hoover's reluctance to intervene in the economy, will a more active government make a difference? Your stomach reminds you that philosophical questions about government policy won't fill an empty belly. You head back to your apartment, newspaper tucked under your arm, thinking about breakfast. The government relief package still sits on your small table, a treasury of basic ingredients. You decide on a simple breakfast, cornmeal mush again, but this time with a spoonful of the dandelion jelly Mrs. Rossi gave you. The sweetness is a luxury, turning plain mush into something almost special. As you eat, you read the newspaper's coverage of Roosevelt's victory. His acceptance speech promised a new deal for the American people. What exactly that means remains to be seen, but there's a sense of possibility that hasn't existed for years. A knock at your door interrupts your reading. It's Mr. Rossi, looking more animated than you've ever seen him. "Good news, my friend," he says, his accent thicker with excitement. "The construction site. They need men today. Just for the day, but good pay. I tell them about you. Your heart leaps. Work. Actual paid work. Where? When? You ask, already reaching for your coat. Hudson Street project. Big building. They need extra hands to pour concrete. Must go now. Foreman only takes first 20 men. You barely have time to grab your cap before you're rushing out the door with Mr. Rossi. On the way, he explains that a friend of his cousin works as a site manager and tipped him off about the temporary need for workers. "Lucky day," Mr. Rossi says. "Roosevelt wins, we get work. Maybe things change now, eh?" The construction site is chaotic when you arrive. Men gathering, foremen shouting instructions. You and Mr. Rossi join the crowd of hopeful workers. The foreman looks you over, checking for strength, you assume, and nods. You're in. The work is back-breaking, mixing concrete, wheeling it in heavy barrows, pouring it into forms. Your muscles scream in protest after months of underuse and undernourishment. But you don't complain. The pay is 50 cents for the day, a small fortune in these times. At midday, the workers take a break. Men sit on piles of lumber or lean against walls, opening lunch pails or paper bags. You've brought your slice of vinegar pie and an apple. Not much, but better than nothing. Mr. Rossi sits beside you, unwrapping a sandwich. "From my wife," he says, breaking it in half and offering you a portion. Bread with a little olive oil and salt. Simple, but good. You accept gratefully, giving him half of your apple in return. The simple exchange of food creates a bond between you. This is how people are surviving, sharing, helping each other through. "What would you buy?" Mr. Rossi asks, gesturing to your $half that will come at day's end. "If you could buy any food, what would it be?" You consider the question. "Meat," you say finally. "A good piece of beef, or maybe eggs." "I miss eggs. They're relatively expensive now, about 30 cents a dozen. Almost prohibitive on no income." "For me, cheese," Mr. Rossi says with a wistful smile. "Good Italian cheese. My mother, she made cheese at home in old country. Here, too expensive." Around you, other workers are having similar conversations, simple dreams of simple foods. One man talks about missing oranges, a luxury from Florida that few can afford these days. Another speaks longingly of his wife's apple pie made with real apples, not crackers or vinegar substitutes. The afternoon work is even harder than the morning. By the end of the day, your hands are blistered, your back aches, and your arms feel like lead. But when the foreman hands you that $half coin, the pain seems worth it. Real money, earned through honest work. "Maybe they need men tomorrow, too," Mr. Rossi says hopefully as you walk home together in the fading light. "Maybe," you agree, though you know it's unlikely. These temporary jobs are rare and precious, snapped up quickly by the army of unemployed. You part ways at Mrs. Rossi's building, promising to share news if you hear of any more work opportunities. The small community of struggling neighbours has become your lifeline in these hard times. Back in your apartment, you assess your improved situation. The relief package provides basic staples. The $half coin opens up possibilities for a few fresh ingredients. And there's the newspaper with Roosevelt's victory offering at least the hope of broader change. You decide to celebrate with a special dinner, not extravagant. That's impossible, but something better than your recent fare. You'll need to shop carefully to make that $half stretch. At the small grocery, you examine prices with care. Eggs are indeed 30 cents a dozen, too much to justify. Butter is 28 cents a pound, also too expensive, but a small piece of salt pork is just 15 cents. Onions are cheap, 5 cents for several. A head of cabbage, another 5 cents. You could make a decent soup with those, adding some of the navy beans from your relief package. With the remaining 25 cents, you allow yourself one small luxury, a package of Kraft macaroni and cheese. It's a relatively new product introduced just a few years ago, but already popular because of its affordability. 19 cents for a package that makes 4 servings. The processed cheese powder isn't exactly fine dining, but mixed with milk, reconstituted from your evaporated milk ration, it makes a creamy, satisfying dish. You carry your purchases home, already planning the meal. The salt pork will add flavour to the bean soup, which will take hours to cook but will make enough for several meals. The macaroni and cheese will be today's treat, quick and easy. As the beans simmer with the salt pork and onions, filling your apartment with a rich aroma, you prepare the boxed macaroni. The instructions are simple. Boil the pasta, drain, add milk, butter, or in your case, a small piece of salt pork fat, and the cheese powder. Stir until creamy. The result is nothing like an Italian pasta dish Mrs. Rossi would make, but it's hot, filling, and has that satisfying cheese flavour that's been missing from your diet. You eat slowly, savouring each bite, thinking about how this simple boxed dinner would become a staple of American households for generations to come. After dinner, you tune your radio to hear more about Roosevelt's victory. The announcer's voice crackles through the speaker, discussing the president-elect's plans. There's talk of banking reform, public works projects to create jobs, relief programs for the unemployed. It all sounds promising, but you've learned to be cautious with hope. Another knock at your door. This neighbourhood is becoming positively social. It's Mrs. Rossi again, this time with a small container. "We make gelatin," she explains, handing you the container. "For the children, but too much. You take. Inside is a moulded gelatin dessert, pale yellow in colour. It's a simple thing, just gelatin, sugar and water, with perhaps a drop of vanilla flavouring. But the mere existence of a dessert feels luxurious. The children, they love the wiggle," Mrs. Rossi says with a smile, "so cheap to make, but makes them happy." You thank her, touched again by the sharing that has become so common in these hard times. The Rossis have so little themselves, yet they consistently find ways to share what they have. "Giovanni has work tomorrow," she adds proudly. "Same construction. The foreman, he like how Giovanni worked today." You're genuinely happy for them, though a small part of you feels a pang of envy. Work is so scarce that even a single day's employment is cause for celebration. "That's wonderful," you say sincerely. "Please tell him I said congratulations." After she leaves, you try the gelatin dessert. It's sweet and jiggly, refreshing after the salty, heavy macaroni and cheese. You've read about the elaborate gelatin salads and desserts that were popular before the Depression. Moulded creations with suspended fruits, vegetables, even meats. This simple version is far more modest, but still a treat. You think about other creative uses for gelatin you've heard about. Some people make congealed salads with whatever vegetables they have, suspended in gelatin flavoured with vinegar instead of sugar. Others create mock aspics using gelatin and beef broth. In times of scarcity, gelatin's ability to transform humble ingredients into something special makes it valuable. The next morning, your beans have finished soaking and cooking overnight. The soup is thick and aromatic, the beans tender, the small pieces of salt pork adding richness. You portion it carefully, one small bowl for breakfast, the rest saved for future meals. With no prospect of work today, you decide to use your time to make something from the flour in your relief package. Bread would be the obvious choice, but you lack yeast. Biscuits, though, those you can manage with flour, Crisco, and a bit of reconstituted milk. You mix the dough carefully, working by feel rather than precise measurements. Your mother taught you this skill years ago, before the Depression, when you still lived at home in a smaller town upstate. "The dough will tell you when it's right," she always said. And indeed, when the texture changes under your fingers, becoming smooth and elastic, you know it's ready. While the biscuits bake, filling your small apartment with a homey aroma, you read more about Roosevelt's plans in the newspaper. There's talk of a first 100 days of aggressive action once he takes office in March. Banking reforms, securities regulation, public works projects, agricultural aid. Will any of it help people like you and the Rossis? It's hard to say, but for the first time in years, it feels like someone in power is actually trying to address the crisis. The biscuits emerge from your unreliable oven, golden brown and surprisingly light. You slather one with a bit of your precious peanut butter while it's still warm, watching it melt slightly into the hot bread. The simple pleasure of fresh-baked bread with peanut butter feels almost decadent after months of extreme frugality. You wrap the remaining biscuits carefully. There'll be a welcome addition to your bean soup later, and perhaps a nice breakfast tomorrow with some of Mrs. Rossi's dandelion jelly. As you finish your simple but satisfying meal, you reflect on how much your relationship with food has changed during these hard years. Before the depression, you rarely thought about where food came from or how much it cost. You ate at restaurants occasionally, bought whatever looked good at the market, took it all for granted. Now, every morsel is precious. You know the exact price of eggs, milk, flour. You understand viscerally what it means to be hungry. Not the casual hunger of someone who skipped lunch, but the persistent, gnawing emptiness that comes from prolonged scarcity. You've learned to forage for dandelions, to transform vinegar into pie filling, to stretch a small piece of salt pork into multiple meals. In a strange way, there's value in this knowledge, this return to basics. The simple pleasure of a warm biscuit is more intense when it's rare. The generosity of neighbours sharing what little they have becomes profound against the backdrop of widespread need. You think about the foods that have emerged or gained popularity during these hard times. The boxed craft dinner, the creative gelatin dishes, the mock apple pies made with crackers, necessity breeding invention, Americans adapting, finding ways to nourish themselves and their families despite the odds. Outside, the November day is bright but cold. You consider taking a walk, perhaps checking the bulletin board at the community centre for any job listings, but your body is still sore from yesterday's construction work, muscles protesting at the unaccustomed labour. Instead, you settle back on your bed, allowing yourself the luxury of rest. The bean soup is simmering gently on the stove, its rich aroma filling your small space. The newspaper with news of Roosevelt's victory lies folded beside you. The $50 coin from yesterday's work sits on your small table. Security of a sort. For this moment, at least, things don't feel quite so desperate. You have food, you have shelter, you have the prospect, however distant, of change on the horizon. Your eyes grow heavy as you lie there, the warmth of the soup-scented room making you drowsy. Your body sinks deeper into the mattress, the familiar lumps and springs now feeling almost comfortable after months of sleeping on them. Your breathing slows naturally, muscles relaxing one by one. Tomorrow will bring its own challenges. The depression isn't over. Jobs are still scarce. Winter is coming with its additional hardships of cold and increased fuel costs. But right now, in this quiet moment of relative comfort, you allow yourself to simply be. Your limbs feel pleasantly heavy, tension melting from your shoulders and back as you settle deeper into that cozy spot on your bed. The afternoon sun casts golden light through your window, warming your face gently as you breathe slowly, evenly, finding that perfect rhythm that brings your whole body to a state of calm relaxation. You wake to the sound of knocking, insistent, excited knocking. For a moment, you're disoriented. You hadn't meant to fall asleep in the middle of the afternoon. The light coming through your window has shifted, lower now, golden with the approach of evening. The knocking continues. You get up, shaking off the foggy feeling of an unplanned nap, and open the door. It's Giovanni Rossi, the 14-year-old son of your neighbours. His eyes are bright with excitement. "Mr. Franklin at the grocer's," he says breathlessly. "He's looking for someone to help unload a delivery. Said he'd pay 30 cents for the work. My papa already has job today, so I came to tell you." You thank him quickly, grabbing your coat. Small opportunities like this don't wait. The neighborhood grapevine that spreads news of temporary work is a lifeline, neighbors looking out for each other even as they compete for scarce jobs. Mr. Franklin's grocery is 6 blocks away. You walk briskly, hoping the opportunity hasn't already been claimed by someone else. The November air is crisp, the late afternoon sky turning the soft orange pink of approaching sunset. The store is busy when you arrive, unusual for these times. Mr. Franklin, a round man with perpetually flour-dusted hands, looks up as the bell above the door announces your arrival. "Looking for work?" he asks, seeming to read your purpose immediately. You nod, explaining that Giovanni Rossi told you about the delivery. Just in time, Mr. Franklin says, gesturing toward the back of the store. Trucks arriving now, big delivery, holiday stock coming in. Thanksgiving is approaching, you realize. Even in these hard times, people try to celebrate if they can. Mr. Franklin is stocking up on items like canned pumpkin, cranberries, and flour for pie crusts. The work is straightforward but physically demanding, unloading crates and boxes, carrying them into the store's small storeroom, unpacking some items directly onto shelves. Your muscles, still sore from yesterday's construction work, protest at first but gradually warm to the task. As you work, you notice the holiday-related items coming in. Canned pumpkin for pies, bags of cranberries, boxes of gelatin in various flavors. Apparently, people are planning elaborate molded salads for their holiday tables, despite the economic hardship. Mr. Franklin chats as you work together. People still want their Thanksgiving, he says. They'll cut back everywhere else, but tradition matters, gives folks hope, you know? You do know, even in the darkest times, people cling to traditions, to normalcy. A holiday meal, even a scaled-down version, represents continuity, the promise that life goes on. Getting lots of orders for gelatin, Mr. Franklin continues, stacking boxes on a high shelf. Ladies make these fancy, molded salads now. Stretch the food budget and look nice on the table. You think of Mrs. Rossi's simple gelatin dessert from yesterday. No fancy additions, just sweet wobbly comfort, but you've seen pictures in magazines of the elaborate creations some women make. Vegetables suspended in tomato-flavored gelatin, fruits in sweet varieties, even meats and fish in savory aspects. Selling a lot of Ritz crackers too, Mr. Franklin adds. That mock apple pie recipe on the box, people swear by it, can't tell the difference from real apples, they say. You're skeptical about that claim, but you've learned not to dismiss these creative substitutions. The vinegar pie surprised you with its tastiness after all. By the time the truck is fully unloaded, dusk has fallen. Mr. Franklin counts out 30 cents in coins, and then, to your surprise, adds a small paper bag. Broken biscuits, he explains. Can't sell 'em, but nothing wrong with how they taste. Take 'em home. You thank him, genuinely touched by the gesture. The coins clink pleasantly in your pocket as you walk home through streets now lit by street lamps. The broken biscuits, simple crackers, really, will go nicely with your bean soup for dinner. Back in your apartment, the soup has simmered to perfection. The beans are tender, the broth rich with the flavor of salt pork and onions. You ladle out a generous bowl, crumbling some of the broken biscuits on top. Simple food, but satisfying, nourishing. As you eat, you think about Thanksgiving approaching. Before the Depression, you would have expected turkey, stuffing, cranberry sauce, mashed potatoes, and pumpkin pie. A feast. Now, you'll be grateful for any special addition to your daily fare. Perhaps, with careful budgeting of your recent earnings, you could afford a small chicken instead of a turkey. The beans you're eating now could become part of a stuffing. Maybe you could try making that Ritz cracker mock apple pie you've heard so much about. After dinner, with a full belly and the pleasant weight of earned coins in your pocket, you feel almost prosperous. Your relief package, the day's wages, the odd jobs here and there, you're managing to piece together a living, if only just barely. You decide to try another recipe from the government pamphlet. This one is for something called surprise loaf. Essentially, a meatloaf made with very little meat, bulked up with breadcrumbs, oatmeal, and grated vegetables. The surprise is that it contains almost no meat, but is designed to taste meaty. You don't have ground beef, but you do have a small amount of salt pork left, which you chop very finely, mixed with breadcrumbs made from your homemade biscuits, some grated cabbage, an onion, and seasonings. It forms a loaf that you can refrigerate and bake tomorrow. One meal prepared ahead. a luxury of planning not always available in these uncertain times. The radio provides company as you work, the evening news giving updates on Roosevelt's transition plans. There's talk of a brain trust of advisors helping to shape the New Deal. The names mean little to you, but the sense of purposeful activity is encouraging after years of seeming inaction. A special segment about Eleanor Roosevelt catches your attention. The announcer describes how the incoming First Lady plans to continue her practice of serving simple, economical meals in the White House as a gesture of solidarity with struggling Americans. Mrs. Roosevelt has worked with home economists to develop nutritious meals that average Americans can afford, the announcer explains. Dishes like deviled eggs in tomato sauce, bean and tomato stew, and simple desserts like prune whip will be served even at formal White House dinners. Prune whip. You've heard of this, but never tried it. Apparently, it's a dessert made from pureed prunes whipped with egg whites and sugar. Prunes were a common substitute for fresh fruit during the Depression, being relatively inexpensive and available year-round. The broadcast continues, describing how the Roosevelts plan to demonstrate frugality in various ways once they move into the White House. It's largely symbolic, you know. Their personal sacrifices won't directly help people like you, but symbols matter. The contrast with the Hoover administration's perceived indifference is stark. A knock at your door interrupts the broadcast. It's becoming a regular occurrence. This building, once filled with strangers leading separate lives, has become something of a community as shared hardship brings people together. This time, it's Mr. Jenkins from down the hall, an elderly man who rarely left his apartment before the Depression. Now he's part of the Neighborhood Information Network, trading news about jobs, food sources, and relief programs. Thought you'd want to know, he says without preamble. They're distributing surplus food at the church tomorrow. Government bought it from farmers who couldn't sell it otherwise. Heard there might be cheese, maybe butter. Cheese and butter, both luxuries these days. What time, you ask? Early. Line forms before 8. Mr. Jenkins nods once, his message delivered, and shuffles back toward his own apartment. You thank him and close the door, already planning to be at the church well before 8. Fresh cheese, the thought makes your mouth water. Perhaps you could share some with the Rossis, repaying their many kindnesses. As you prepare for bed, you feel more hopeful than you have in months. Work 2 days in a row. Food in your cupboard. The promise of cheese tomorrow. A new president with new ideas. Small things, perhaps, but they add up to something like optimism. You wash with cold water from the basin. Heating water is an expense saved for mornings, and change into your nightclothes, worn thin from years of use. The sheets on your bed are similarly threadbare but clean, washed meticulously by hand and hung to dry from your window. Before turning out the light, you look at the calendar, November 9th, 1932. Not yet the end of the Great Depression. That would take years more, and a world war, but perhaps the beginning of the end, a turning point. You slip between the sheets, pulling the blanket up against the night chill. Your body, tired from physical labour, sinks gratefully into the mattress. The familiar lumps and springs no longer bother you much. It's amazing what you can get used to. Your mind drifts to the foods that have sustained America through these difficult years. Creative, makeshift dishes born of necessity. Peanut butter, stuffed onions, vinegar pie, dandelion salad, Ritz cracker mock apple pie, creamed chipped beef on toast. SOS, as the soldiers called it during the Great War. Hoover stew with its sliced hot dogs stretching a meal. Mulligan stew gathered from whatever was available. Some of these dishes will fade away when prosperity returns, curiosities remembered only by those who lived through hard times. Others, like Kraft macaroni and cheese, will become permanent parts of American food culture. The boxed dinner, introduced during the Depression out of necessity, will remain popular for generations to come. Comfort food with a side of nostalgia. Outside your window, the city settles into night. Fewer cars on the streets now, occasional footsteps on the sidewalk, a distant siren, the rhythmic clickety-clack of an elevated train. Your eyelids grow heavy as you lie there, your body gradually releasing the tension of the day. First, your feet, then your legs, then your back. Each part of you surrendering to gravity, sinking deeper into the mattress. Your breathing slows naturally, finding a steady, soothing rhythm. In the morning, you'll join the line at the church, hoping for cheese. You'll look for more work. You'll continue this patchwork existence, piecing together meals from government relief, odd jobs, and creative substitutions. But you're managing, surviving, and maybe, just maybe, things are starting to change. Your eyes close fully now, your consciousness beginning to drift at the edges. That pleasant heaviness spreads through your limbs, your thoughts becoming less focused, more dreamlike. The sounds of the city fade into a gentle background hum as sleep approaches. You think of Mrs. Rossi foraging for dandelions, showing you how to turn weeds into food, of Giovanni running to tell you about work at the grocery, of Mr. Jenkins sharing news about cheese distribution. In the midst of this terrible economic disaster, a different kind of wealth has emerged, the wealth of community, of people helping each other through. The Great Depression has taken much from Americans, but it has given something too: resilience, creativity, perspective, the knowledge that what truly matters isn't stock portfolios or luxury goods, but having enough, food on the table, a roof overhead, neighbors who care. Your breathing deepens further, your body completely relaxed now. The weight of your limbs seems to increase pleasantly, pressing you down into the mattress. Each breath comes slower, easier than the last. You're in that sweet space between wakefulness and sleep, where worries dissolve and peace settles in. Tomorrow's concerns, finding work, stretching food, paying rent, seem distant now, problems for another time. For this moment, you're safe, relatively fed, and resting. That's enough. The room fades around you as sleep draws closer. The gentle weight of the blanket feels comforting, a protective layer between you and the world. Your muscles have fully surrendered now, every last bit of tension melted away. Each breath feels like it's carrying you deeper, deeper into that perfect stillness. Your mind makes one last coherent thought before slipping into dreams. This too shall pass. The depression, like all things, will eventually end. America will rebuild. Jobs will return. Pantries will fill again with more than government relief packages. And when that day comes, when prosperity returns, you'll remember these strange, creative foods that kept body and soul together during the lean years. The dandelion salads, the peanut butter stuffed onions, the Ritz cracker mock apple pies, the prune whip and gelatin molds, and endless variations of beans. You'll remember, and perhaps even occasionally make these dishes again, not from necessity, but from a desire to remember what you lived through, to honour the resilience, to taste the past. But that's for later. For now, sleep beckons irresistibly. Your breathing has found that perfect slow rhythm that signals the approach of dreams. Your body feels wonderfully heavy, sinking ever deeper into the mattress, every muscle completely at ease. The busy thoughts of your waking mind have quieted to a gentle murmur, then to silence. One last deep breath in, a long, slow exhale, And finally, sleep embraces you fully, carrying you away from the hardships of the Great Depression into peaceful darkness. Your face relaxes completely, the last tension around your eyes and mouth melting away. Your hands uncurl, fingers soft and still. Even your breathing seems to pause for a moment in perfect stillness before settling into the steady, gentle pattern of deep sleep. You drift now, far from worries about strange foods and empty pockets, far from the challenges that tomorrow will bring. For these precious hours of rest, there is only peace, your body perfectly still, perfectly at ease, while your mind floats free in dreams. And as you sleep, somewhere in New York, Franklin and Eleanor Roosevelt are planning. As you sleep, farmers are still growing food, even as they struggle. As you sleep, scientists and home economists are still developing ways to make that food go further. As you sleep, America endures, battered but unbroken, learning the hard lessons of these difficult years. The Great Depression has changed how Americans eat, how they shop, how they think about food. Some of these changes will be temporary, adaptations to extreme circumstances. Others will become permanent parts of American culture, lasting long after the economic crisis ends. But that's all for another day. For now, there is only this perfect stillness, this complete surrender to sleep. Your breathing slow and deep, your body totally relaxed, your mind at peace, drifting deeper, deeper into restful darkness. The world with all its hardships fades completely away, leaving only the gentle rhythm of your breathing and the blessed relief of sleep.